Hello. Well, I got myself a new microphone and a longer extension cord to plug it into the computer with, so I can sit further from the camera. So we'll see how that works out. Do let me know what you think of it, especially of the microphone, because the other one, there was a lot of hiss on it, and I don't know why. I'm hoping this one will be a bit different. Okay, so before I start, I will remember to tell you I am Grannyopteryx. I am to be found on YouTube, Rumble, BitChute and Minds, and I would appreciate it, especially you YouTube viewers. I would appreciate it if you would check that you are subscribed, because YouTube unsubscribes people quite regularly. I get lots of complaints about that. And please click the like and interact with the video as much as you can, because that does apparently help with the algorithm. Perhaps that's a grandma's tale, but that's what I've been told. All right, now, secondly, I have to confess to you that I do have an interest in this trucker business, because one of my cousins was a trucker. And he's the sort of guy who owned his own truck, not in Canada, of course. He spent most of his working life paying off the debt on the truck, because those things are phenomenally expensive. And even if you've paid them off, you know, like a wheel costs hundreds of pounds, just one wheel. And you've got to be tough to be a trucker. You have to be able to do running repairs at the side of the road. You get blowouts, you get mechanical problems, you get all sorts of unexpected incidents, and you have to be resourceful and strong, and you have to be tough. And that was not in a place like Canada, where the weather is so diabolically bad a lot of the year, and where the distances are so incredibly long. And so I have a lot of respect for truckers. And a few people noticed that I was quite down in the last video I made about the GoFundMe fiasco. And I was very dispirited. Well, okay. Not only because of the fact that the truckers were going to get very disappointed, but because it was a betrayal of trust. I keep talking about betrayals of trust, don't I? This seems to be something coming back in many of my videos. And I think I might have mentioned somewhere along the line that in Dantes Inferno, the deepest level of hell was reserved for traitors. Obviously, Dante regarded traitors, people who betrayed trust, as just about the worse than murderers. There was one guy who ended up, you know, he was being starved to death and he ended up eating his own children. He wasn't even in the lowest level of hell. Just the traitors were. And I think because it just when you give your trust to somebody or some organisation, you are giving them your soul in many ways on a plate, and whatever it is you want them to do. Now, of course, if circumstances intervene, you can't blame them. But well, let's consider what GoFundMe did. I was much cheered in the period after I had made that video, and between then and now, to find out, first of all, that Ron DeSantis, the governor of California, oh, if only, of Florida, was going to set a legal team to investigate the GoFundMe fiasco, and probably that, and maybe for some other reasons, it was they changed their tune somewhat, because what they said they were going to do, and that's when I made my video, what they said they were going to take all that money, and they were going to, unless people sent in a claim form, which many wouldn't be able to do, wouldn't have the time to do, or many of them would have actually been in Ottawa, wouldn't have been able to access that sort of thing, and they knew that. They were going to give whatever wasn't claimed back in an official form to other charities of their choice. They said to registered charities. But for goodness sake, that's not the point. You can steal something from somebody and hand it to a beggar in the street who deserves it. It's still stealing. I don't know whether that would be considered stealing or fraud. But whatever it was, this was drawn to their attention, and they changed, and they said, all right, we know who gave us what, and we're going to just return the money. So that was probably under some legal threat. But what got me was that they didn't think that through before they said what they originally said, that they were going to take the money and give it elsewhere. That is... You wonder who was running. Is this a company, or is Eddie the Eagle running it, or some student group who thought up the idea after a few spliffs in a dorm room? Surely they must have realised. I mean, any business person would realise that you can't take money from people telling them you're going to do X with it, and then you say, sorry, we don't like X, we're going to do Y. When I told my husband about this, I said, did you hear what happened with the trucker thing? No, he didn't, because he never listens to the news. And then I said, well, they're taking the money and they're going to give it to other charities because they've been told that the truckers are misbehaving. And my husband just looked at me and said, you can't do that. And I said, well, yeah, they're doing it. And that's why I was so depressed. Now they've changed their mind. And I realised what the problem probably is. You see, the sort of people who set up GoFundMe are probably the sort of people who would have got, in earlier years, would have gone into some big business on a low grade, and for quite a while been the tea makers and the sweeper-uppers. I'm not disparaging tea makers and sweeper-uppers, by the way, but what used to happen was that you started in the world of work. You went out to a factory or an office, and you were a dog's body for a few years until you learnt the tricks of whatever trade it was from the older operatives. Sometimes you were actually apprenticed, which means you were stuck with a boss for years, and bit by bit being given slightly more and more complicated jobs and responsibilities depending on how well you're learning. But now it's the kids teaching the masters, or what would have been the masters, because the older you are, the less likely you are to come to grips with high tech, or even to have the innovative ideas necessary to start up high tech businesses. And that's all very fresh and young and good and start up and all the rest of it, until you come across a situation where a bunch of seasoned politicians are leaning on you, and you suddenly feel like you're being summoned to the headmaster's office. And then you not only cave, but they manage to maneuver you into acting fraudulently. And you don't know what hit you. I've seen a lot of tweets about how badly the people in Ottawa are behaving, and obviously there's a sort of build-up of propaganda here, and these people were falling for it because they're the sort of people who depend on social media rather than experience and a long perspective for their view of the world. Anyway, just to end up with, what else cheered me up was this. the video of protesters turning up in Ottawa on horseback. Just look at them. The cavalry have arrived. Isn't that wonderful? And it's wonderful from my point of view for many reasons. But one of them, people who don't ride horses don't understand the egalitarian nature of horse riding. There is a given among horse riders that a horse will throw a prince as well as a groom, meaning that if you can't handle a horse, it doesn't matter how important you are, you're going to end up on the ground. And this can happen to the most important people in the world as well as the least important. And when you see a lot of horse riders, you know you're looking at some of the most egalitarian people in the world, and obviously some of the most down to earth, because when you live in a town and you spend your life in towns, you can get the impression that you're a master of the universe. But when you get out into the messiness of the countryside and you're dealing with irrational creatures like horses, you realise that the universe isn't quite as orderly as many townfolk think. And when you've got these people turning up to this protest, people of what I consider of good sense, really. And so it did. Anyone who said I was depressed, well, you should know I saw that video. I heard about Ron DeSantis. I heard about the legal fight, and I also heard that there's another funding organisation who are taking over the funding of this, and they're last I heard of it, they were up to about $5 million within a couple of hours. So it means that not only is the light not going out, but it's burning even brighter now. Why not treat yourself or a favoured relative or friend to these magnificent examples of merch? The mugs and t-shirts come in the Grannyopteryx design or Granbo with a firearm or the more deadly knitting needles. Go to www.grannyopteryx.com and whatever platform you're watching this on, please click like, subscribe and share.